Hey everyone! Today we're talking about one of the most chaotic and interesting periods in Roman history, the crisis of the 3rd century. Ever heard of a time when the mighty Roman Empire nearly fell apart? Yeah, it's wild stuff. For about 50 years, from 235 to 284 CE, Rome was in total disarray, splitting into 3 separate empires and cycling through over 20 emperors like it was nobody's business. To put that into perspective, before this mess, it took over 250 years for just 26 emperors to rule. So what happened? Why did everything go so wrong? Let's break it down. It all started with the assassination of Emperor Alexander Severus in 235 CE. Now, Alexander wasn't exactly a bad guy. He actually had some solid policies, but he was completely overshadowed by his mom, Julia Mamaea, who basically ran the show. And let me tell you, the soldiers hated her. She cut their pay to save money for her own projects, which didn't sit well with the troops. On top of that, Alexander followed her advice to bribe enemies instead of fighting them during a campaign against German tribes. His soldiers saw this as cowardly and dishonorable, and they ended up killing both him and his mom. That's when things really went downhill. Enter Maximinus Thrax, the first of what historians later called the barracks emperors. These weren't your typical emperors chosen by bloodlines or even the Senate. They were picked by the army based on how much they could offer the troops. If an emperor didn't deliver quick wins or keep the soldiers happy, he was out, often via assassination. Maximinus himself lasted only a few years before his own troops turned on him because of constant wars, famine, and unrest. From there, it was a revolving door of leaders. You'd get guys like Gordian I and Gordian II, a father and son duo, who tried to take power but ended tragically. One died in battle, and the other committed suicide. Then came Balbinus and Pupienus, who were so unpopular they got murdered by the Praetorian Guard within months. It was brutal. And it didn't stop there. Every new emperor seemed to promise stability, but ended up dead, usually at the hands of their own people. Take Philip the Arab, for example. He made his young son co-emperor, thinking it would ensure a smooth transition. Instead, both were killed in battle, and the kid was later murdered by the Praetorian Guard. Or Decius, who thought naming his son co-emperor would work too, but they both died fighting the Goths. The list goes on. Gallus, Aemilianus, Valerian. You name it, they met a grim fate. Some were captured by enemies, others betrayed by their own commanders. Valerian's story is particularly rough. After being captured by the Persians, rumors say they stuffed his body and displayed it as a trophy. Yikes. Amidst all this chaos, 2 breakaway empires emerged. In 260 CE, a regional governor named Postumus declared independence in the west, creating the Gallic Empire, which included modern-day Germany, France, Spain, and Britain. Around the same time, Queen Zenobia of Palmyrene carved out her own empire in the east, stretching from Syria down to Egypt. People were fed up with the instability in Rome, and these leaders promised better governance for their regions. When the Roman Empire started to fall apart during the crisis of the 3rd century, a few leaders stepped up to take control of certain parts of the empire. They didn't do it to go against Rome, but more to protect what was falling apart. Postumus in the west and Zenobia in the east weren't trying to destroy Rome. In fact, both of them still showed respect for Roman traditions and leadership. Postumus set up his own government in the western provinces, but always claimed he was doing it for the good of Rome. Zenobia, ruling from Palmyrene, even printed coins that had her son on one side and the Roman emperor on the other. She wanted her son to be accepted by Rome, maybe even become emperor one day. So calling them rebels doesn't really fit. They were just smart leaders trying to hold things together while Rome was falling apart. The main Roman government had so many problems during this time that they couldn't really deal with these breakaway regions. Emperors were constantly fighting each other or dealing with invasions, so people like Zenobia and Postumus pretty much ran their regions without much pushback. But that changed when Aurelian came to power. Aurelian wasn't a smooth-talking politician. He was a tough, battle-hardened general. He had proven himself in many wars and was respected by the army. After becoming emperor, he made it his mission to reunite the empire. Between 270 and 272 CE, he took on multiple enemies, Vandals, Goths, and others, fighting them back and securing the empire's borders. Once that was done, he turned his focus to the east, towards Zenobia. Now, Aurelian wasn't interested in Zenobia's reasons for taking control of the east. He didn't care that she claimed to be doing it for Rome. To him, she was in the way. And so he marched east, destroying cities on the way to make a point. But something changed when he reached the city of Tyana. A dream about the famous philosopher Apollonius convinced him to spare the city. That one act of mercy spread fast. Other cities surrendered without a fight, hoping they'd be spared too. Still, Zenobia wasn't about to give up. She gathered her troops under her general Zabdas and went to war. They clashed at the Battle of Imae in 272 CE. Aurelian played it smart. He had his cavalry pretend to run away, tricking Zenobia's forces into chasing them. Once they were tired out and off guard, Aurelian's men circled back and crushed them. Zenobia and Zabdas escaped and tried again at the Battle of Emesa. Same trick, same result. Zabdas likely died, and Zenobia was captured. A lot of dramatic stories came out of that, like Zenobia being paraded through Rome in golden chains, but most of that was probably exaggerated. Aurelian didn't want to make a big show of defeating a woman. It was already embarrassing for Rome that it took so long to stop her. Once the East was back under Roman control, Aurelian headed west to deal with the remains of the Gallic Empire, which had been run by Postumus, and after his death, by a man named Tetricus VIII. Tetricus wasn't eager to face Aurelian. Some sources even say he secretly asked Aurelian to spare him and his son. When their armies met at the Battle of Chalons in 274 CE, Aurelian crushed them. But instead of killing Tetricus and his son, he spared them. Tetricus was given a government job and lived out his life peacefully. Some people think this proves that Tetricus betrayed his army. But that doesn't really make sense. If Aurelian had known Tetricus would surrender, he could have saved his soldiers and supplies. It's more likely that Aurelian, after learning from his campaign in the east, realized that showing mercy could be more powerful than brute force. Sadly, Aurelian didn't get to enjoy his success for long. His own commanders, thinking he was going to replace them, turned on him and killed him. Even though Aurelian died, he had set things in motion. His work was continued by Diocletian, who took what Aurelian started and made even bigger changes. Diocletian knew that if Rome was going to survive, things had to be done differently. He reorganized the government, made the emperor seem more powerful and respected, and changed how the army worked. Instead of huge armies stuck in forts near the border, he had smaller forces spread throughout the empire that could move quickly wherever they were needed. He also stopped the system where soldiers mostly fought near their hometowns. That way, they stayed loyal to the empire, not just their local leaders. He fixed the currency, controlled prices to stop inflation, and came up with a smart system called the Tetrarchy, where 4 rulers shared the job of running the empire. This made it easier to manage such a huge territory, and kept the government more stable when one ruler stepped down or died. His biggest move? He split the empire into 2, East and West. That made things much easier to handle. The Western Roman Empire would last almost 200 more years. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, kept going all the way until 1453 CE. Rome's survival through this chaotic time wasn't guaranteed. But because of leaders like Aurelian and Diocletian, it held together long enough to influence the world for centuries to come.